everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And I'm Brandon.
Guys, today's question comes from Mr. Deadpool fan, who says, I'd like to hear you guys talk about movies based on real events, and if they should keep exactly to what happened, or make changes to help narratively. That's the question. So, we're talking about biopics. We're talking about
Historical fiction.
Historical fiction, yeah. Well, not exactly, right? I mean, because some. We're talking about like let's take a real event and put it on screen. That's a little different than historical fiction.
Well, historical
true,
fiction
'cause
would
you
be
can have-
changing the events.
Or it would be a
fictionalized
thing,
version of history.
Or a fictional thing set in a historical era where you keep you keep the history around it the same. This is different than alternate history.
Right.
The same thing. Like an alternate history would be if you said, "What if Hitler won World War II?" or something
But
like that.
isn't that what the
historical
question's tackling? Is not doing that? Isn't that what it's asking about?
No, I think he's talking about taking historical events and making a movie out of them, and then how true you have to be to what actually happened. Like being true to source material when you adapt something.
So if you're writing fiction, then that kind of deflates the question completely, though, is what I'm saying.
Not entirely, and we'll get into that.
I mean, like, in my mind, you have biopics. I mean,
Yeah, and let's start there,
like
shall we?
Ray Charles. But then you have things like the Titanic, which are... Obviously, that stuff didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of it
that's
didn't.
good.
That is not a straight up biopic.
Yeah, I mean, and the Titanic stuff happened, but who's got real first hand accounts of somebody drawing some naked chicks?
Right, exactly. And then of course, obviously going from there, Pearl Harbor and things like that. Yeah. So, recently I did a Rewind United on. Well, not real recently, but on a movie called A Beautiful Mind, which was a biopic, but there were a lot of things changed for the narrative. And I read it like a fictional narrative that was based on a true story. And so, a lot of the things that they changed, they kind of needed to change in order to do the very interesting characters study that they did in that movie. And it worked great as a fiction, but it was based on real events. What made it difficult was in the places where I felt like they were pretending like what was in the movie was actually what really happened. Even though it wasn't. And what I mean by pretending was when you get to the end of that movie, and this was my biggest criticism about it. I gave it a 4. I love that movie. But my biggest criticism about it was you get to the end, and they do that thing that so many of these biopics do. I think Ray did it. A lot of these biopics will do this, where you'll get to the end, and they'll give you text on the screen as the movie ends that says, and here's where these people are now. And that immediately takes it from fiction to reality. Right. When you say, and these people are here right now, if that statement is true, it is like you were, whether you intended to or not, it is like you were telling the audience the 2 hours that you just spent watching these people, that's how it really happened.
Right.
And you have to make the distinction within the fiction that it's a fiction.
So then that's the problematic point.
That's the problem.
It's not so much should we, in that instance, should we be changing the facts here and there or adding to the narrative? Should we be adding this based on the fact that we did change things? I think for me on this issue, it really comes down to a point where the story happened. So it is its own narrative.
Right.
Like, that's why change things. Because people aren't going to want to see the actual story. And I think that's problematic. I think we should operate under an air of, this is what happened. If you're going to say a true story, don't change anything.
Yeah, but the problem with that is history is open to interpretation.
Yes,
and
it is.
When you say don't change anything, you're implying that you know every single detail of what really happened.
That's true. That makes it problematic for a cinematic experience.
Yeah, all you have, unless you're talking about somebody that videotaped every single moment of their life, and even that could in certain ways be open to interpretation.
I found footage of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, straight up. Straight up.
What you're doing is you're basing these kinds of movies on personal accounts and on letters and on books people wrote about people.
My dearest Amelia, it is with tragic essence.
There is a filmmaker who has done this. There is actual video footage. It's of what
Lincoln's
happened.
assassination?
No.
That's impossible.
Of what he made his movie out of, and he still
only in Brave and the Bold
fabricated things for the movie.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Werner Herzog's Grizzly Man. Van Herzog, and I think he's an interesting guy.
What was his reasoning?
His reasoning was that kind of like poetry, you can get at a more realistic truth than by showing them what actually happened. And I think he's just a little full of it.
Where have I heard that before?
But, he keeps telling this idea of ecstatic truth. And I find it interesting, but I also find it a little questionable.
Here's the thing. I don't think he's 100% wrong. I think it's about somewhat intent. Is the man trying to create real life? Or is he trying to tell a fiction based on things that really happen? Because the thing is, so many great stories are this. They are real life exaggerated. You and I heard that over and over again in writing school. Fiction is reality embellished. It is, and sometimes embellished to the nth degree, right? But, some people tell stories where they make up everything, and some people tell stories where they make up a couple of things. But the fact that you made up anything, the fact that you embellished on it at all, immediately takes it from the realm of reality to fiction. And so A Beautiful Mind is a fiction with a bunch of... In fact, I even said in that review, I kind of wish they changed all the names of the characters. Like, I kind of wish that they had just changed everybody's names, because it was different enough that the fact that it wanted to, on some level, be real, kind of actually hurt it as a fiction for me, and that was a little bit problematic. So, anyway, that's...
sometimes I get annoyed when they use like historical figures, but they're a footnote in it. Like I know this is almost like weird to bring up, but when I saw Newsies, the Broadway play, suddenly, and I know that he's in there and this has some historical basis to it, but when Theodore Roosevelt shows up and it's right at the end of the play, you're going, now? I mean,
interesting.
It's not like he hasn't existed since the beginning of this play, and now he's going to walk in.
He's just making a cameo? What is this, first night?
Like, why do we need to pay an actor to walk in and go, yep, I'm changing everything, and then walk out?
Yeah.
Cap, you made a great point to say that nobody's recording everything, and that there's going to be some element of interpretation. Well,
I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe the NSA, but that's another story. Well, not today. This is day 2 of no NSA spying, right?
What about the NRA?
Anyway, you make a great point. Artistic interpretation.
The NCAA, they keep like
they record everything.
And the NAACP.
Man,
those acronyms.
Yeah, man, and the NHL too, man. They keep putting cameras on my head. Yeah.
So to support this idea that Captain Logan has put up here,
I guess they think I could become a good hockey player. I don't know.
So one of the things Herzog did that I thought was interesting is he put words into the people's mouths. Yeah, we'll get there. He put words into these people's mouths.
I don't know where that went.
He got the family, or he got the people that knew the Grizzly Man, as we're going to call him, because I forgot his real name. And they said, hey, I want you to say these things because this is the way you felt in the moment, right? And the person says, well, yeah. So, and then it's, they're not actors, so it's very evident that they're acting.
We talked about this very thing on camera during our...
did we?
The thing where we talked about whether or not you're acting on camera as you would in real life. We had the same story.
Right. Yeah.
Full circle. Everything just comes right around.
Full circle. So anyway,
now that we're back on track, what's your point?
And Brandon,
I would label it more limited human experience. But anyway, go ahead, Brandon.
This is my limited human experience. I live in a rock, or under a rock, rather. I live in a cave under a rock.
Geekvolution.
What?
Actually, Brandon just lives in my storage room.
It's true. It's funny because it's true. So, anyway,
did, right?
Sorry. Back on track here. Where was I? We were talking about...
Well, you were back there, and then we woke you up. No, I'm kidding.
My slumber. Now, anyway, you made a very good point.
Here we go.
Tell me, nobody's recording everything, so everything's subject to interpretation. Could you create a movie based on facts alone, and would people even go and see it? I think that's the issue that they're coming up with. You can't. There's some sort of interpretation. You can have a fact, but maybe implementation of the fact was such a way that we don't know.
That's great. The fact that you're dramatizing it immediately puts a perspective on it.
Right. Exactly, and I think that this alone...
It's immediately somebody's interpretation.
If you
maybe collective interpretation.
Let's say that you had a video of exactly how an event happened.
And then you put it in the movie theater.
Well, you're going to you're not going to just put it in the movie theater.
Right,
you're going to chop it up and put your perspective on it. Even if it's the plane of that the video of that plane hitting the World Trade Center tower. Are you just going to see the plane hitting? No, you're going to hear somebody's interpretation of what that meant, how it went down. It's going to be chopped up into bits. You're not going to, come on. I mean, this was historical captured on video.
Let's also be realistic.
This is how the media works.
Exactly.
We're always talking about that. About news is facilitated through a source.
And shock journalism. They're going to put their spin on it. Whatever.
Right, and without getting into all of that, it's just that it's problematic. You're immediately it is somebody's perspective. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, let's say that there's this idea that I'm going to call selective recognition of actual events. Okay. I'm going to call this a real thing that I just made up in my head. SRAE.
Yes. Vince has become the SRAV. Anyway, go ahead.
So back to acronyms.
They decide that they're going to show you certain things from this person's life, and all of those things could have happened. Let's say that you have a movie where every single one of these events is something that actually happened, and this person actually handled those things in that way, literally. So
visual inconsistencies not captured everywhere. Vince. Just on the fly there.
So what so the point is, I was
thinking
that by not showing everything, you have painted an incomplete picture that may look complete. So thereby,
yes, absolutely, you
have perspective just by somebody choosing the events that are going to go into an hour and a half, or even let's say oh God, that guy's name who's I've completely forgotten, like the whole jazz documentary, baseball, Ken Burns. So Ken Burns chooses certain things to go into his documentaries. And one of the things that Ken Burns says that I think is so interesting is that he will try to develop a narrative with the idea of the documentary in mind. So he's not going to tell you everything you could ever possibly know, and the point of the documentary is to get at some sort of gigantic human truth, to tell you a little bit more about the human condition, as opposed to just given someone.
Which is what fiction is about, but not necessarily. But that doesn't make what he's doing a fiction. Now, let me ask you this question, Vince. Does the fact that something is dramatized, if we're talking about biopics, does dramatizing it automatically make it fictional?
I would say that the events are not made any less true, but but
it's somebody else's interpretation.
It does have some.
You have that with even.
It would have to be fictional
with even biography. But yeah, I think to a degree it would be. The fact that you are dramatizing it and putting it into the fictional mold. Now, I'm not saying that all fiction has a very it has to have a specific kind of formula where there's only one way to do it, but
by very nature of putting it into a dramatization, you are then showing a perspective based on true events. It's no longer true events. Here's an example. If we inset a video of us dramatizing our performance here tonight and inset it in here, that's not the actual thing, even though we have the actual thing recorded, but it is based on true events. It is a fictionalized interpretation.
Yeah, we would immediately be trying. No, but we would immediately.
It's a perfect example, though.
Yeah, we would immediately be trying to get at the crux and the root of whatever this is, and you'd be able to see the themes and such of our conversation come much more prominently because we would be so focused on the ideas of it. Yeah, but that would be stupid, and we would never do that.
But it's the point.
I totally get it. Go ahead.
I think part of what makes this, I think this is relevant. So generally, if you're going to dramatize something, you are essentially putting words into an actual person's mouth using an actor.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it fictional, because it's not that people are representing a past event, it's that they are showing you people's reactions in a way that may not be factual.
This may sound oversimplified, but this is really my take on it. Just is what I prefer as a consumer when I go watch these sorts of things, because I actually kind of enjoy a lot of biopics, and I kind of want a fiction myself. Like if I want it, mostly because if it tries to present it, maybe this is cynical. If a dramatization tries to present it as this is exactly what happened, I'm immediately not going to believe them. I'm immediately going to say I don't trust you because I don't think that's really possible. So I want a great story told about these characters based on real people. Maybe get as close to the truth to what really happened as you think you can, and maybe I can learn something about these people. But it's also up to me, I think, after that, in a way that it is not when you're adapting source material. This is different. To go back and, if I want to really learn about the real person's life, watch documentaries, read biographies, those sorts of things.
Right.
So my point is, if you want to get at the personal truth of a human being, or at least an interpretation of somebody else's idea of what the personal truth of that person might have been, you do a dramatization. You do a story. You tell a great fiction based on real events. If you want to get at the crux of what really happened as best to your ability, you make a documentary.
Be true to the spirit than you are to the
That's absolutely true.
And I feel exactly the same way with what you just said as I do with source material. Except, like I said, when you're adapting source material, I don't think that... I'm sorry, let me say this real quick. When you're adapting source material, I don't think a person should have to have read the book, read the comic book, watched the TV show, whatever it is, in order to go see the movie. Now, I don't necessarily think that a person should have to do a lot of research before they go see a biopic. I do think that it's better if you can even go into a biopic and just see a movie. When I saw A Beautiful Mind, the first time, I didn't even realize that was based on a true story. I just thought it was a great fiction. And it works wonderfully on that level. I didn't have to know it was based on a real person. But the distinction is, well, maybe this isn't actually that different from source material. If I want to know everything about the source material of, say, Watchmen, I can't just watch the movie, I've got to read the book.
Right.
If I want to know everything about W.B. Du Bois, I'm not going to watch a biopic about W.B. Du Bois. I'm not going to just watch the biopic and expect to get everything.
Right.
I need to also go do my research and see the source material, which is whatever empirical research we have about his life.
So to input here, like, how would you feel? Like, how would the section of the movie Jobs that we went to see?
Yes.
The section where now it's known that Jobs dropped acid in his college years. The scenes that we get are clearly dramatizations of his acid trips when he would take them to college. How do you feel that fits into what you're saying? That's just more of the same, just a dramatization.
Well, it's an interpretation.
Of an event we know happened.
Here's the distinction, okay?
Uh-huh.
The guy that we saw in the movie was not Steve Jobs.
Ashton Kutcher's not Steve Jobs?
He was Ashton Kutcher's dramatized version, fictionalized version of Steve Jobs. Ergo, somebody else could come in, and they've done this, and we're going to see this movie coming up.
I'm looking forward to it.
This year or next year, I forget. Somebody else could come in and present a radically different interpretation of Jobs, and it wouldn't necessarily be any more or less valid than what we got before. These are fictional characters created out of real history. I think that's how I like to watch these things.
So you consider them as kind of a fictional interpretation, where I consider them more of an interpretation of the...
So you wanted accuracy. Yeah. I know this about you when we went and saw it. We watched that movie, and you were looking for straight up accuracy.
I'm usually looking for accuracy.
I was looking for everything I'm looking for in a good story, and I got a lot of those things. And a lot of the stuff that I didn't like was because of the attempt at making it, I thought, maybe not too biographical, but they started focusing on the biographical stuff about the company and less about the man, when I thought for a long time I was watching more of a character study. Right. And then it turned more into this study about this company, and that was all more real stuff. Again, dramatized, but the focus got shifted because they felt like they had the filmmakers felt like they had a responsibility to present certain things, there's a word I'm looking for and I can't think of it. I will as soon as Vince starts talking. Go ahead, Vince.
I think this is I know this is a movie. Maybe they made a movie, but just the idea of
represent was the word. They were trying to. There were certain things they wanted to say. We must be representative of this because we're doing a historical thing. Well, you're telling a story is what you're doing. So tell your story. Go ahead, Vince. I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
See, I guess when they say when you're done too.
Okay, so I think that just to illustrate this point that people can have radically different opinions. John Brown, a very prominent historical figure in Kansas.
Absolutely.
In Kansas, John Brown is considered a freedom fighter, abolitionist. But you go just a little east of here, across the state border into Missouri, he's considered a terrorist.
That's right.
And
That's right.
It's not. I mean, state line, the street, you just pass it, bam, and people will have this opinion. It's interesting.
I once got to state line, and this is a true story. I once got to state line. It was literally raining perfectly on the line of state line off Shawnee Mission Parkway. It was raining in Missouri, and it was not raining in Kansas. And I was just like, wow.
Kansas is weird.
But what I guess
Missouri
wanted to say is, speaking of interpretations, perhaps we're interpreting the very nature of the movie's title when it comes to jobs, because we saw all the jobs that Steve Jobs had.
I said that when we reviewed it.
Yeah, it's just like this is all. Yeah, exactly. All the jobs Steve Jobs had.
If you make Vince, I love what you just said. If you make a movie about a person whose worldview and philosophy you completely are opposed to, you're going to make a different movie than if you completely agreed with that person inherently. You can try to take all your politics out of it, but you are a human being and you have wants and desires and beliefs. And I've always said this. When you sit down to just write a story, and you don't even try to insert, to blatantly insert themes. I'm going to write a story about feminism. You don't have to do that. If you are let's say you are a feminist and you write a story about a woman, some of that is likely to come out inherently without you even being conscious about it. If you make an example for you. If I make a biopic about Vince, which
played by Brandon
would be interesting.
Played by Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
I need a little Seth Rogen.
If I made a by the way, have we ever told you this?
Played by Jason Statham.
We have had an equal amount of people, and I did a comment of the week about this once. We've had an equal amount of people almost. Maybe it wasn't quite equal, but a number of people say that Vince looks like Seth Rogen and that I look like Seth Rogen. Now Vince and I don't look alike, so I don't really know how that happens.
I've gotten Seth
Curly
Rogen
hair versus just.
I've gotten Seth
hat.
Rogen. I've gotten Jason Statham. I've gotten Mark Strong and Elton John.
People John! People have told me I look like a young Dustin Hoffman.
Okay, we're getting way off track.
I know we
just
are,
felt
but
the need to say that. Anyway, if I were to make a biopic about Vince, I would probably, even if I wasn't consciously thinking about it, there would be a certain agenda that would be hard not to have by making a documentary about Vince. I like Vince. Vince is my friend. I would probably try to make Vince look really good. It might be hard for me if Vince had any skeletons in his closet. I'm just using Vince as an example. I do
keep skeletons in my closet.
I'm just saying that if there was something that would make that would make Vince look bad, I'd have a hard time putting that in my movie.
But that'd be Vince himself.
Or I'd have a hard time not scaling it back a little bit. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? If a person. Okay, the other day, let me give this example real quick, and then I have to hear your example. Did I show you Shatner's documentary on the captains? Okay, we've got to watch that. It's fascinating. William Shatner did. William Shatner did a documentary interviewing all of the people that played major captains in Star Trek.
Cool.
Kate Mulgrew and
but he brought his Shatner
Scott Bakula, Avery Brooks, and Patrick Stewart. Yeah. And then to milk this project for all it was worth, they later came back just this year, and these are on Netflix now. I've watched them. They just this year put out these half-hour episodes about each of them with more footage that didn't make the movie, and they did these individual ones with just some extra stuff, but also kind of an overview of their careers and their just their lives. And so what was really interesting, and the reason I bring this up, what was really fascinating is the last one is on Shatner himself. It's Shatner making a half-hour documentary about William Shatner.
Does he talk to himself?
That's meta. And it's,
all of the interviews come from the captains, come from the other actors. So
that's cool.
That was neat. So in their interviews, there are places where some of them, not all of them, where some of them ask Shatner questions about himself, and most of it comes from Kate Mulgrew. At some point, she just turns that around and goes, "I'm going to start interviewing Shatner. I want to know about Shatner." It's great, yeah. But anyway, I wasn't really making a point with this other than to say that perspective. If William Shatner made a fictional movie about himself, it probably wouldn't be as scathing about the negative parts of his life as if, say, anybody else made a movie about Shatner.
As a matter of fact,
and even if he were to, because Shatner is one of the first people to come out and say, yes, I have an ego.
Right.
Even if he and he admitted in that documentary to cheating on his first wife and things like that. Even if he put that stuff in there, it would not come off the same way as if somebody more objective were to come in.
Right, but even with Shatner, and we'll get to your example in a second.
I'm sorry.
Even with Shatner, like you said, Shatner is not going to be so critical of the scathing times, but we've seen Shatner talk about these things and kind of almost try to turn it on the people that the tiff is between.
Yeah, with the stuff you're talking about,
right.
Yeah. But he's a lot more realistic about his and a lot more kind of contemplative and that sort of thing about his earlier history.
Sure,
say, these are the mistakes I made.
Right, of course,
that
absolutely.
kind of thing. I did find that refreshing in the part of that was on himself. That he didn't try to make himself look like he was perfect or anything. Vince, go ahead. What were you going to talk about? Let's get off this.
No.
Back to you.
Go ahead.
So the example, it's not a historical picture, but the idea of trying to remain unbiased brought this up, and I've talked about it on the channel before. But there's a movie called Elephant that was about a school shooting. I mean, this movie was obviously made.
Do you own that movie?
No.
Okay, because if you did own that movie...
I don't enjoy it, but it's an interesting movie.
I was just going to say, if you had it and it was in your room, then it would be the elephant in the room.
It's the elephant at the movie store.
Sorry, go ahead.
The movie store.
I mostly just wanted to see Brandon facepalm a la Patrick Stewart. Go ahead.
Who's a la Patrick Stewart? Anyway. So, Elephant, the idea behind this was it was supposed to be a movie about a school shooting that was made with an unbiased approach. It was just supposed to be the events that would happen that could potentially lead up to a school shooting.
Did it work?
And the teacher, it was in a violence class, or it was a class about violence in American cinema. And he said, you guys be the judge. He said, you guys, as the students, you can watch this and write a discussion post, because it was a class about whether or not this actually works. Is it something that is unbiased? And I said, I think that almost inherently you can't do that. Because
I don't know if it's humanly possible. Because
I
think
think
have fallacies and we're the ones making it. Yeah.
Let's have robots make our movies.
I suppose it's almost, or maybe the point is you can make a movie, and even if you are unbiased, you just show the events that lead up to things. By showing the events that lead up to things, you're not showing this as a complete person. You're showing this as a person who is doing these events that lead up to a shooting.
Right.
So so you're saying that the nature of it is that, well, even if you're unbiased, you don't have all the information.
Yeah, were it truly unbiased, it would be hours and hours long, showing the development of these people.
Of course, also, even if you're truly unbiased, like you said, you don't have all the information. Unless you're showing actual footage,
everything.
It's always, we're back to square one. Subject to interpretation.
He's saying that you are showing actual footage, you just don't have enough of it.
Yeah, it's totally
fictionalized,
true. But the elephant is
true.
Is it? Okay. I was misunderstanding.
So it's not an actual historical
So it's
event,
fictionalized.
but it's supposed to be an unbiased look at something that happened.
We should probably end this pretty soon and jump over to rants. I'm sorry, did you have something you wanted
to
add?
No, I pretty much, all subject to interpretation once again. We're right back to square one.
I'd like to tack one more thing onto this topic, because we've been largely discussing biopics versus biographies and documentaries. I want to mention really quick, we brought up at the beginning of this discussion historical fiction. Mm-hmm. And the question I want to pose real quick, and I don't want to get too far into this, but I think this must be brought up, is if you're doing a story, a completely fictionalized story, these are not based on real people at all. Maybe there's a little bit of stuff from like people in your life or whatever. What I mean is, like, let's say I'm going to set a story in the 50s, and I'm not going to go research this particular family. I'm just going to set a family in the 50s. It is historical fiction because it's set in a place, and the history that surrounding it is more or less the way it was.
Like that Leonardo DiCaprio film.
My question is, how much... I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway,
Titanic.
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
What, Catch Me If You Can?
No, there was another.
That's not. That's
there
not
there was
DiCaprio.
another movie where he's supposed to be like living the American dream. It's set in that time frame, but
Let me ask the question. The question is, can something like that, can a period piece like that work if you are blatantly disregarding history and presenting things like they didn't really happen?
I think you have essentially two things that can kind of run adjacent to each other. You have fictional history, which is all of the major events are true, and it's just the dramatized things that
as far as we understand,
underlying the major events.
Yeah.
Or at least, yeah, it's true as far as we understand them. And then you have alternate history things where the ideally the events that have not been affected by the events in the movie should be the same, but then there should be events in the movie that alter history, thereby changing things around, which makes it kind of a different beast.
As always, I think it's all about the fiction, not just movies. Books and things can do this. I think it all that matters is that the fiction knows what it's doing. If it's an alternate history and it says everything is the same except for these things, Watchmen is not a bad thing because Nixon was elected in office 4 or 5 times. You see what I'm saying? That book does that intentionally and says something with it. But what doesn't work is when you clearly are ignorant of history and you you interject things into your fiction that are totally preposterous, but you clearly, as the author, are not aware of how preposterous it is. You see what I'm saying?
Not gonna work.
And you can usually tell. Now this is somewhat open to interpretation, but a lot of the time you can tell. A lot of the time you can watch or read something and go, they think this is how it really was, and it wasn't. Versus they know this isn't how it was, and they've created a reality where this is how it is, and then I can suspend my disbelief because in this reality it is that way.
now sometimes that's
You can change just one thing. You don't even have to change everything. You can change one thing and then explore the kind of how the dominoes fall.
We can even see that in history books, even in our own country as well as other countries, propaganda where they are blatantly disregarding what actually happened.
Well, yeah.
And then putting it out as real
by the winners.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
I think that plays in largely to what you're talking about.
But I'm just talking about knowing what you're doing versus being, kind of
being ignorant of it.
And that's why I think, historical fiction. I mean, it becomes not historical fiction at the point that it becomes alternate history to a degree. I get that, but
right.
But you see what I'm saying. So what I mean is, somebody will go see a period piece and they'll be like, well, and they'll kind of nitpick things and they'll say, well, I can't think of any great examples, but Vikings didn't wear those kind of hats, or
Downton Abbey, that British
kind of thing,
piece.
and
people were big on that.
There was a
I've only watched part of the first episode.
and you're making a movie about medieval times, but there's a telephone pole in the back. No, I'm kidding. But
Well, that's just misplacement.
I'm just
You're
kidding.
filming a movie in a spaceship, and then you go to the basement and you see the sun through the window.
But I'm just saying
example.
that I think that it's important that you are deliberate about what it is you're doing when you go back. And, and I mean, you can do tongue-in-cheek things and stuff, but that's...
Here's the example you're looking for: is that
just
Robin
different.
Hood film that you didn't like
The,
so bad? The one that Robin Hood Men in Tights is spoofing.
Right. What about it?
Well, the stuff that they did that you clearly didn't like how badly they did the historical stuff.
No, it wasn't. Well, I don't remember. I'm not prepared to discuss that movie right now because it's been so long since I've
no,
seen it.
of course, but you've made mention to me, and this falls.
You're putting me on the spot right now. I'm not ready to talk about that movie.
You've made mention to me that you didn't like. Who's the main guy who did that movie?
Errol Flynn?
No. He's talking about the one with
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner.
You almost said Schneider. Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner.
That was great.
You related to me that
Well,
you didn't
was for
like
a
how
four-letter
he.
word, but
First of all, he had a.
I thought you were just going to another Jonathan Kent. I'm sorry.
He had a terrible accent, I believe, you related to me, and it was a number of things that
But it wasn't
didn't
because
fall
I
in
know.
line.
But that wasn't because I
Robin
know
Hood,
that.
Prince of Thieves. That's what it is.
Keep in mind, of course, that Robin Hood is a fictional thing in the first place.
Right, but it's subject to interpretation of a time period.
Yeah, but the problem was inconsistency. Less than it's not like I know that time period. It's just he kept coming in and out of an accent. I can never really deal with that. Like that's
Okay,
that's
so
always
that's a
the problem.
slightly different
yeah,
topic.
that's a little bit of a
Okay.
different thing.
Well, I tried.
Anyway, no, that's cool. We've covered the gambit on this. Why don't we go ahead and go on to rants now, shall we? Unless anybody had
Alright.
final thoughts that you didn't get to.
Oh,
get
Nah,
to.
I don't.
Final thoughts?
Yes.
I think it is okay to dramatize things. I think it's okay to put words into a character's mouth in order to create
change
a
events.
script that is a little more narratively sound.
It is okay as long as you're clear about what you're doing and what your intentions are.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
All right, let's go ahead and go on to rants. And as always, we're going to start with Vince because he's oh so entertaining. Vince, what is your rant today?
My rant today is that I ran out of my drink during the filming of this video.
Oh, man. And so now he's all parched and he's got cotton mouth now.
So my actual rant.
Okay.
Cotton mouth. Cotton. So I get annoyed when I watch something or read something and there's a dumb guy that everyone just makes fun of, and that's where the comedy is supposed to come from. Like, oh, well, let's all make fun of Charlie because he's the dumb guy. Now, because I feel like the writer is like has the puppets and they're moving around like, well, this guy's really dumb and I'm going to say mean things to him, and that's not funny to me. First of all, because I don't think just inherently I don't think calling someone stupid is funny in and of itself. I think
you want to test that theory?
Vince, it's a similar.
You're stupid.
He
laughed.
I agree. Though it's a similar situation where you have someone like
he agrees. You're stupid.
Where you have someone like the Mentalist on TV, where he's clearly supposed to be a guy who can read other people, but clearly the character he's playing is all scripted. I mean, like it's just in and of itself. I can't watch stuff like that.
I mean, I don't think it's a highbrow form of comedy, and I don't think it's, I want to use the word diegetic, but that's referring usually to noise, but, or music specifically, but it's not generating from the characters. The hands are working, and it's forming something that is, number one, stereotyped.
You're saying that you can see the strings, and then that gets in the middle of it. And
you know, I get annoyed when I go to some workshopping class, and then there's inevitably somebody who's written a comedy piece that is about, let's call this guy stupid. And I kind of feel like that's a writer's way of working out insecurities by dumping onto some fictional person.
It was me, and I wrote it, and it was called The Life of Vincent Haskins. I'm sorry, it's just that's what I came up with.
And everybody just crapped on him because he's super dumb.
For the record, if I had made that biopic, it would have been a way better
interpretation. I view his life as just a total just downhill all the way. No.
Vince, challenge accepted. I'm gonna write a script called "Look How Stupid This Guy Is."
Smackdown.
And see if I can make it more character driven.
I think that'd be a heck of a movie. Is like, let's look how, or like what is it, like Point and Laugh at the Dumb Guy or something like that?
Point and Laugh at the Dumb Guy.
And the dumb guy, it would be the dumb guy is the main character, and everybody thinks he's super stupid, but really he's living in a world full of people that don't fully understand what he's doing. He's a person ahead of his time.
I'm going to make a sequel to a book that I had to read back
An Ugly Mind?
No, I'm going to make a sequel to a book and a play, Vince, that I had to read back in junior high school, and it's going to be called Chocolates for Algernon.
Oh dear. And that's the Valentine's Day story.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Would you, in an instance like this, would you allow the main character to improv during the movie and only look that much more stupid because they
sure.
It would probably help.
Stupid? Yeah.
Okay, Brandon, what is your rant today?
My rant is movie execs and movie companies trying to dictate how we should respond to things in the theater and what our decorum should be
example
inside the theater. Well, recently Disney's doing this thing called Second Screen now, they now have an app.
We have one. How many do we need?
Okay, what's happening is during the re-release of The Little Mermaid, I read about this. They have a Second Screen, which is an app you download to your iDevice or something, and you use it during the movie.
Everybody in the theaters got their.
How much more? How much more disjointed? How much more non-attentive can we have our kids be? Can our kids be? Past the fact that they can't even sit down. Robot Chicken is a perfect example. Boom, boom, boom. Another skit after another skit. We are so just ready to move on from one storyline to the next storyline. Let's look at the screen. Let's look at our pads. Let's look at people next to us. Is our app synced? Is the noise? Are the noises coming out at the same time? this is problematic for me. It's already bad enough that we have people yelling in the movie theater, talking very loudly in the movie theater, and dark in the movie theater, and even though
it's just because they can't sit still.
It is, and even though the execs say at the beginning of it, like at our favorite movie theater, they go, "We'll ask you to leave the theater." They never asked you to leave the theater. I was about ready to ask them to leave the theater.
Yeah. You know, I've never actually said, "Would you please leave the theater?" But I've said, "Shut this something up," and I kicked somebody in the chair so hard that they flew out at least that far. So, not a joke.
That was that week that Vince wasn't on GNN because I had to bail him out.
Was in jail.
Yeah, we had to raise funds for his...
we did a Kickstarter.
Not a joke. This guy's like, "Hey, man, did you see that movie the other day, man?" Yeah, and he's just chatting away, and then he pulls out his phone and he starts doing things. I'm like, bam! I just kicked his chair so hard.
Well, that's interesting.
That he went.
We're going to leave that scene up to interpretation by the actor we get to play you.
And he looked around and said, "I'm sorry." I said, "Yeah, you better be." I felt really bad that I kicked him as hard as I did. I really didn't mean to. I was just angry.
And in this version, you get up and you go, "You better be."
I was like, "Dun dun dun dun, super guy, shut up! Stop talking and ruining my movie. I'm gonna go put this away."
All right, so here's my rant.
Go.
It's time for yet another YouTube rant, Vince. We post on YouTube. We love YouTube, but sometimes Google does irritating things, and it's unfortunate, and I hate that. But I hate. And sometimes I hate complaining about stuff like this because it's like, this is a free service. We don't have to have this. I can't imagine the world prior to 2006 when we didn't have YouTube. You know what I mean? We should. So I'm going to preface this with, I ought to be happy just that I can post unlimited content and I don't have to pay for it. That's great. But they keep taking stuff away that not only did we love, but also we relied on. And the big one recently is, and I don't know if you know this, Vince, they have taken away the video responses. Yes, video responses gone now. Why? I don't know, but they took them away, and now you can't post a video response to somebody else's video. Now, video responses were great for a couple of things. Obviously, it was a nice way to find cool channels that you didn't know about. You'd find a video that somebody had tagged. Now, you've got the sidebar and you've got the related content.
That's an algorithm
so that's good. But somebody might go, "Oh, well, if you liked this, you might like this video I made," and it's unobtrusive. It's not like they're advertising and being irritating. It was actually a part of the system that allowed
That's the
people,
human element of the system.
It was a nice way for people to find stuff that they wouldn't have otherwise found. So, but the other thing is, just from a purely selfish point, video responses are how we do who reviews the reviewers, and I don't know how we're gonna do that now.
I guess we're gonna have to dictate a particular title to them so that people can find them easily.
Yeah, and then it'll have to be PMs or something to get it to us, or an email or whatever. But fewer people will probably even try to get into who reviews the reviewers now, just because we don't have that system anymore, and it'll be more confusing for people. Okay. I hate that. Why are we gutting everything out of YouTube that made it easier to use, more fun to use, and is just taking away? I mean, it's called YouTube, and the U is being taken out of it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like, YouTube, not WeTube.
Yeah,
Tube.
But you see what I'm saying?
It's just tube now. That's funny.
My point is, we keep gutting out all the customization, and that's more of that.
Facebook did it. YouTube's doing it.
Yeah, it's getting bad. But anyway, so I hate that, and like I said, I hate complaining about it. I feel like
MySpace.
I feel like an entitled jerkface. You know what I mean? For having any problems with that sort of thing at all. But anyway.
I actually would agree with your point there. That is kind of interesting. That's more of the human element, the you aspect of YouTube, just being gutted.
And it's just something that we got used to and some of us relied on it for things.
I guess they could post a link. I guess I'm trying to fix the problem. They can post a link in the comments to the video.
It's just not the same.
Yeah, but no, they can't, because you can't post links in comments.
Mother!
Yeah, I mean, you can post the end of the code, but it's irritating. You know what I mean? Like, there's not an easy way to... My point is, it was built into the system and now it's gone. And, we'll find workarounds.
Bring it back.
We'll find workarounds, but... They were gutting so much out. They gutted so much out of the channel design, and then they did it again, and then they did it again. And every time they do it, they pretend like it's somehow better.
Streamlined?
Like they keep well, but they also act like somehow or rather it's more customizable, and it's not. They take total features out. And
guess what you guys are getting now? We're taking away your Nintendo. Are you happy?
But I'm just afraid that it's going to get to where like they're taking away things that we really, really, really need. You know,
like the ability to post videos.
Yeah, the video option itself.
When does the inbox go away? Is what I'm wondering.
Then all of a sudden it's just you. It's
Stuff
not.
like
It's
that,
not tube. It's just you.
Because they're taking away the social media aspect of it.
That's
and
my
just
point.
leaving the posting.
And you know
of
why
videos.
they're doing that? Here's the thing. I think I know why this is happening. I think this is happening because they want YouTube to be Google Plus. They want they because they're forcing us to they're more and more they're forcing us to make Google Plus and YouTube simultaneous. Or synonymous.
Aren't they owned by the same people?
Yeah, it's all Google. But
Yeah.
but my point is, you can't just sign in with your username anymore. You have to use your Google Plus account.
That's true.
You have to do that. And so as that's becoming more and more the thing, I think eventually YouTube's going to kind of go away or be completely linked.
It will turn into Google Tube.
It's going to get to where like
Plus.
it's going to get to where you go to Google Plus and you got videos and you go find the videos, and that's what we're going to get to. And so the reason I said when does the inbox go away is because I'm like, well, I think that the video responses went away because they want you to send people, they want you to post videos to things on Google Plus, not on YouTube. You see what I'm saying? That's my guess. They want everybody to use that as a social network, and I think that's because they're competing with Facebook.
Google Plus doesn't even work half the time.
Yeah. Well, at least the live feeds, have all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
But
Try to log into those suckers and.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's it for my rant.
Okay.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed our discussion. We sure had a good time. We'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.